Political professor RIC EPPS joins us this morning now with more.
Okay.
Morning, guys.
I hope we have the next 4 hours available, Professor. Good morning. So much to get through here. Were you surprised, first of all, by the verdicts in the Manafort case and the implications of that?
Not really. I knew I had a feeling things were going to be coming down the pipe soon. And they came down maybe a couple of days earlier than what I thought, but I knew that the process was already happening. So no, I wasn't quite surprised, but the extent of the charges, and I thought was really interesting.
So guilty on 8 of the big ones. 10, it was a hung jury. Mueller needed these convictions. If this didn't happen, that would have been that would have thrown a wrench into the whole investigation. Correct?
Correct. And they came about. I mean, on the 8 of them they indicted him on, and then the other 10. That's where it's going to get interesting, is what they're going to do with the other 10, right? The other 10 charges. And there's several things they can do with that. So, yeah, Manafort is going to have some difficult days ahead in terms of his decision making.
Back to the 8 that you were originally talking about, do you think that Manafort's defense team, they're going to come back and try to do anything with that or accept it?
They better. If they were smart, I would say that would be the smart legal thing to do. And part of that is because, you know, in order for him to avoid significant jail time, and I mean significant jail time, because this is the tip of the iceberg for him. He's got to now go to D.C. and deal with facing new counts there as well.
So the 10 counts that was a hung jury, they could retry that. The 8 counts he was found guilty of, they could appeal that. He still has a separate trial altogether coming up in September. I mean, how do you even wrap your mind around all that?
Well, I think that's his legal team, as well as Manafort himself, realizes, even if, yes, the appeal process is going to happen, as he navigates that, I mean, it's going to be basically looking at D.C. and what happened in Virginia with this particular case. But here's the thing that's interesting about that. When you look at the body of work, if he makes a deal in Virginia, he might be able to avoid D.C. completely, depending on what happens in if they make a backdoor deal in order to get him to roll over and on Trump.
Based on what you're talking about right now, at what point, and I know this could be hard to answer, but at what point do you just start to cooperate to shorten your jail time? Do you think that would happen?
I would be surprised if it didn't happen with Manafort.
Really?
I mean, because we're talking about, it could be very significant jail time, and unless he wants to spend the remaining, next 10, 20 years of his life, which basically be near end of life, to spend that in prison.
This is almost a 70-year-old man, so the 80 years is highly unlikely he would get all that, but you're looking at 10 years.
Exactly. So in that, and here's the thing, if he's trying to protect Trump, and we haven't gotten to Michael Cohen yet, but if Cohen's situation plays out in this, then he'd be crazy not to do it, because Cohen's testimony might be enough to undo Trump anyway, so then you've left yourself vulnerable, even though the other person involved in this right now is that issue.
Michael Cohen, now let's get to that, because Michael Cohen, this is the real big decision that came yesterday. He pleaded guilty, and when he gets up there and makes his statement, the courtroom is just jaw-dropping when he essentially, without naming him directly, implicates the President of the United States in this case. Your take on that and what that could mean for the President?
Well, okay. I think it's incredibly injurious to the President. And if found to be true, and there's no reason to avoid it, because he actually makes this under oath, right? So he's under duress for this. When he asserts that the President ordered him to make these payments, you're talking about campaign finance fraud. That is a federal crime. And so in that, by saying that, you're asserting that the President is a co-conspirator in this crime.
In absorbing all this stuff yesterday, a lot of people were asking, hypothetically speaking, had President Trump not won this election, would he be indicted? Would he be facing jail time if he was a regular citizen right now and all of this was still going on?
I believe so, that he would actually have been indicted as a regular citizen. He would have been indicted for this long before. And the problem with this, the bigger picture in this, is that if this vets out and he is found either guilty or possibly impeached on this because of just simply on Cohen, it's what it just says. I mean, there are going to be there's going to be blood in the water in Congress for people who may have been complicit in this. There may also be blood in the water with regard to how the relationship between Congress and the general public, because that's a breach of faith for the general public.
Well, I mean, talking about blood in the water, the President speaking out today, tweeting, if anyone is looking for a good lawyer, I would strongly suggest that you don't retain the services of Michael Cohen.
You know what's interesting about that? When you hear the president make comments like that, you know, first I just ignored that because it's like I know what he's trying to, you know, I know what he's saying. But here's the thing.
What is he saying?
Well, he's basically saying that, you know, trying to disparage, you know, Michael Cohen and his, in terms of his ability to keep his mouth shut. But the part about that, just like when he said how great a man Manafort is for not rolling over. That sounds like a mafia don who's like happy that his next guy didn't tell on him, right? And there's something that's very compelling and disturbing about that in terms of its content. And I think that's people are concerned about what they're hearing, and by his commentary and his continued tweets.
And that tweet indicates, well, I mean, this was your main guy for the past 10 years, so you did hire this person as a lawyer and your fixer and your main attorney. Yeah. So all of a sudden things have changed when things get ugly.
Exactly.
Could the president be charged as a co-conspirator here is the bottom line. I know there's still, this is not the end of it, believe it or not. We still have a long way to go before this whole thing unravels.
No, I would say that if in fact that what Cohen asserts in his testimony is found accurate, that yes, that the president could be considered a co-conspirator, just like Nixon happened in Nixon, and you know, during Watergate, and this is the reality of where we find ourselves. But what I believe, and I have said this before, this is the tip of the iceberg. I think that there is much more to be vetted out of this, and I think it's going to get much uglier as the Mueller investigation moves in. Because I will tell you this: that Cohen's lawyer said yesterday that Cohen is ready and willing to talk to the Mueller team about and divulge information. Because he's got potentially long jail time as well, and so if he does that, now we've got another whole kettle of fish to deal with, and I think that's where it gets really muckier than what it is even right now, and it's pretty mucky at the moment.
Wow.
We've been talking about Manafort, we've been talking about Cohen, and overnight, we got another fish in the water as well.
Yeah, Duncan Hunter, right? Yeah, this gets, it's almost like when you start looking, it'd be a great television series, right, if we were watching it, but it's like disturbing to think that, I mean, when you look at the allegations and you look at, the assertion that what happened with the money and what they did with it, it's incredibly injurious, again, to Representative Hunter with this. Yeah.
Where will this lead? Because the election is coming up. His father, who was in that same office for 28 years, and now his son is in the same seat. Yeah. He said that the timing of it is a little questionable, but we're talking $250,000 in campaign finance, perhaps some issues there in spending money for personal gain and personal reasons. Duncan Hunter, Representative Hunter, he's saying that, look, these were for campaign dinners, these for campaign trips, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, the information's already available.
But you have 40 pages of an indictment here, so obviously that's more. There's something to this.
Oh, absolutely, and I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's even if it is close to the time of election, let's be honest. Just because it's near election time, if you're guilty and you've committed a crime, then you're guilty and you've committed a crime. If it happens to vet out at the time, this time that's just the way it goes. So, the fact is there are 40 pages of indictment plus, and in that, I think there is no way that you can actually look at it.
On both of them, because his wife also indicted. She was his campaign manager.
Exactly. So when you look at it on paper, there is really, I think, no way that he'll probably try and strike a deal in some way, shape, or form if he can on something to avoid.
Before or after the election?
Yeah.
In terms of that timing, what do they do?
Well, he's going to have to deal with, he can't afford to wait till after the election, because right now the comments that are out there already, the indictment is basically already torpedoed his campaign.
So you're looking 80 days out. So.
Oh, no. I would argue it'd be impossible, I think, for him to come back from this.
Professor RIC EPPS. Yeah. Let's take a breath, because there's going to be more to come.
I know. We could be another few hours, right?
we appreciate your insight as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you guys.